All right, so in this video, we are going to go over some simple design tips just to help you get some better results with your um, Ceramill Mind DRS design software. So with any scan, it always starts with the quality of your scan and the quality of your prep. Um, if you don't have either of those, then no matter what you do, you're not going to get as good of a result as you could. So those are the top two things. So the key to getting a good scan is either having high and dry margins or great tissue retraction. Um, and then as far as the scans go, big keys, make sure obviously that you get all of your margins and then that you have this critical data such as the adjacent contacts. Um, if you have holes there in your scan, the software is just going to guess, and it could be off, it could be right, you just don't know. Could lead to a lot of grinding or could lead to open contacts. So two big things there. So the next thing is we will go into margin marking. um, the quickest way that I have found to do margin marking is, for one, envision how you're going to mark your margin when you're preparing it. If you can't see it, then you're likely not going to be able to mark it. So I usually prep with that in mind, just because you are now the lab technician. You can't just send this to the lab and hope that they figure it out. So um, I usually try to find a good solid point of contact where, or good margin line where I'm going to start, just where I know that it's definitive. So I'm going to start here and then just work my way around. Depending on kind of how crisp your margin is, kind of depends on how many points you put here. Don't worry about getting it perfect the first time, um, because you can always go back and adjust. So I like using this tool that you see over here to the right of the cursor. Just if anytime I'm in doubt, I can check it real quick and kind of see where I'm at. But I don't let it be the determining factor, and I don't just go by it. So, and then I like trying to get to a point where I can see my home margin. So just envisioning like an insertion axis and then marking my margin that way. Some people like to move it around. It's really kind of personal preference. So I'm going to zoom in and really just kind of make some tweaks and modifications where I think is necessary. I'll pull these out a little bit. Pull that in a little bit. And as you can see, you do that, you have a pretty quick and easy margin marking. Look, and remember, it always starts with clear margins. It's going to make your life so much easier in the long run. All right, so from there, we will go to this next screen where we are going to kind of calculate and get an initial proposal or a placement proposal for your tooth. Now, since this is imported from the iTero, I just have to switch the buccal and lingual, so I can do one from a regular scan just here in a little bit. All right, so what I usually do is start with, the central grooves, making sure those are kind of lined up, and I've got that where I want it. And then from there, I either alter the tooth this way by hitting the shift key and expanding the scale of the tooth, or another thing I like to do is, if I got it pretty much on, then I'm just kind of moving individual parts of the tooth. I know that this is not your final design, but I find that the more that you can do in this window, the easier it's going to make your life in the second window. So if you just kind of get an idea of, okay, this is the size of the tooth that I want. Now I'm going to go from the buckle profile and just make sure my cusps are right. And for this, I actually like to I kind of like to turn this all the way up just to see, have a little bit better idea. You can see it's kind of tough because he's had these two cusps kind of hacked down. It's got some big fillings in it, but in general, we've got a good profile, good cusp height. Cusps are following cusps, and central groove is following central groove. These could probably be a little less pointed, just because you can see he's got some weird facets. You can change that over here if you want, but this is just kind of a simple design, so we're going to go from there and then make sure we've got good contacts, adjacent contacts. We'll probably have to adjust this in the next screen, and you got a good broad contact there. Okay, so from here we go to our proposal, and I usually start with the smooth tool and just kind of go through. I like to adjust this down a little bit just so that it doesn't do too much, and then just kind of adjust right in here. Just make that nice and smooth. Okay, next thing I am going to do is check my contacts. You can see that we've got a pretty decent contact here. I may add just a little bit just to make sure I've got a contact there. And then here, this one is a little bit trickier because it's kind of a concave contact. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So let's turn that on. So we definitely want to make sure that we don't just have 2 points of contact and we're going to have a place where he's going to pack food. So let's add a little bit right in the middle here and just get a good contact there. And then smooth and just good. Let's just double check that. So yeah, we got a nice broad contact there. Okay. Now, from there, we've got a pretty solid design, so we don't need to do too much in terms of the anatomy. I think we've got really good anatomy. We may want to alter the just profile a little bit. So what I'll do here is either take the tooth parts where I can move this whole thing a little bit closer like that. And I think one thing I forgot to do was turn off the minimum thickness. So that's why it's kind of bulky right there. All right, so as you can see, we've still got a pretty good design here. Yeah, that's pretty bulky right there. So let's smooth that out. Just so that you don't have this nice, or this big bulbous margin right there. And yeah, so that's pretty simple. You've got a contact there. He's kind of got some weird contacts on this side, so you could just leave that. We could just bring this cusp up just a little bit and give us some contact right on that holding cusp. Let's maybe move it out just a touch so it's right on that contact, or right on that cusp tip. And then bring that up a little bit so we've got a marginal ridge contact, and it's going to keep that adjacent contact there. So from there, that's all we're going to do. We're then going to hit next, and we'll choose our blank. Just always, well, if you have the universal mandrel, then it doesn't necessarily well, it does matter, but you want to make sure you choose the right mandrel. So let's just choose this. From here, you either go fast or HD. Depending on where you are, you can get away with fast. If you're in the back, I like fast. It's just a little bit quicker, but HD is going to give you that nice crisp anatomy. Then we're going to edit our pen. For a molar, we want it at least like 3.5, 3 to 3.5. And then we're going to place our pen. So whenever we're placing our pen, we obviously want to avoid our margins. So it looks like here the lingual is not going to be the right place to do that. So let's get out of our pen and bring this over to the buckle. And we want to avoid the buckle groove as well in any kind of contact. So if we look here, this is right at the mid buckle. We're not near the margin, and we have a pretty straight kind of access to the mandrel. So you don't want it to just be all wonky and sideways. So this looks good. And then just a little quick tip is if you bring this all the way to the end, it's just less material your burrs have got to cut through, so a little less wear and tear on those. And then you send that to the mill. It's pretty straightforward. You can do this pretty quickly, as long as you get a good proposal. So, and then we're going to send that. We made sure that we had that block. And then you're going to send that to the mill. And like I said, that's a pretty quick and easy design process. If you get a good proposal, you don't have to do a whole lot to it. Obviously, the wizard makes that pretty easy. So if you have any questions, just let me know.